Welcome to Lore of Rings, where we uncover the hidden roads of Middle-earth and tell the tales that Tolkien never wrote. Before we begin, take a moment to let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time of day or night this narration has reached you. Before the first stone was shaped, before the first leaf fell, he was already singing. Picture, if you will, the old forest at twilight. Mist curls between the gnarled roots of trees that have forgotten their own names. The air hangs heavy with the weight of centuries, and somewhere in that primordial silence, laughter echoes. Not the laughter of men, quick and brittle as autumn leaves. This is older, deeper. It resonates from the very bones of the earth itself. It was here, in this threshold between the known and the unknowable, that 4 small hobbits stumbled into a tale that would perplex scholars for generations. They had fled the grasping branches of Old Man Willow, their hearts hammering with terror, when suddenly,
"Hey, Dol! Merry Dol! Ring-a-dong, Dillo!"
the voice burst upon them like sunlight through storm clouds, and there he stood, Tom Bombadil, yellow boots bright as buttercups, blue jacket gay as forget-me-nots, beard brown as autumn earth. His eyes held the gleam of starlight on deep water, and his face bore the joy of creation's first morning. But there was something else in that moment, something that made the very air hold its breath. For when this strange, wonderful being took the hobbits home, when he fed them and sang to them, and told them tales of days before the dawn, when young Frodo, driven by curiosity deeper than wisdom, slipped the ring upon his finger, nothing happened. The ring of power, the master ring, the one ring that bent the will of kings and toppled the towers of the mighty. In Tom Bombadil's presence, it became nothing more than a band of gold. He took it from Frodo's invisible hand, held it to the light, and laughed. Actually laughed. Then, and here is where the tale grows strange beyond measure, he put it on his own finger. He did not vanish. He did not grow mighty or terrible. He simply stood there, grinning like a man who had just heard the universe's greatest joke, and in that moment, Middle-earth held its breath. The wind dies in the old forest. The trees lean closer. Even the stones seem to listen. For in this one act, this casual, careless dismissal of absolute power, Tom Bombadil revealed himself to be something that should not exist. Something older than evil. Something untouched by the shadow that had fallen across all the world. But what was he? And more troubling still, what happened to him? The leaves rustle with secrets half remembered. But before we venture deeper into the green heart of mystery, we must arm ourselves with the tools of scholarship. For Tom Bombadil is no mere fairy tale fancy. He is a riddle wrapped in an enigma, left for us by a professor who understood the power of questions left unanswered. In the autumn of 1954, as the Fellowship of the Ring made its way into the world, readers began to ask the inevitable question, who was Tom Bombadil? Letters poured into the offices of Alan and Unwin. Critics scratched their heads, scholars sharpened their pens, and J.R.R. Tolkien, that most meticulous of world builders, offered them answers that were not answers at all. I cordially dislike allegory in all its manifestations, he wrote to one persistent correspondent, and cordially welcome applicability. In another letter, he described Bombadil as an allegory, or an exemplar, a particular embodying of pure, real natural science. Yet elsewhere, he admitted that Tom represented the spirit of the vanishing Oxford and Berkshire countryside. But perhaps most intriguingly, in a letter dated 1954, Tolkien wrote, "Tom Bombadil is not an important person to the narrative. I suppose he has some importance as a comment. I mean, I do not really write like that. He is just an invention, and he represents something that I feel important, though I would not be prepared to analyze the feeling precisely. Something important. But what? The professor's own writings offer tantalizing clues, scattered like breadcrumbs through an enchanted wood. In The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, published in 1962, we glimpse fragments of a larger tapestry. In The Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien, edited by Humphrey Carpenter, we find a mind grappling with its own creation. In the appendices and notes compiled by scholars like Wayne Hammond and Christina Scull, we discover the meticulous care with which Tolkien crafted every detail of his sub-creation. And yet the mystery deepens. For here was a man who could trace the lineage of every elf, lord back to the music of the Aina, who could chart the genealogies of men to the very foundations of the world, who left us maps and languages and histories spanning millennia. Yet when it came to Tom Bombadil, this master of detail offered only shadows and suggestions. The story is cast in terms of a good side and a bad side. He wrote, "Beauty against ruthless ugliness, tyranny against kingship, moderated freedom with consent against compulsion that has long lost any object save mere power," and so on. But both sides in some degree, conservative or destructive, want a measure of control. But if you have, as it were, taken a vow of poverty, renounced control, and take your delight in things for themselves without reference to yourself, watching, observing, and to some extent knowing, then the question of the rights and wrongs of power and control might become utterly meaningless to you, and the means of power quite valueless. A vow of poverty, renounced control, delight in things for themselves. The professor left us a door ajar, but behind it, only song and silence. The candle flame wavers. The pages flutter in a wind that carries the scent of distant summers, and we are left to wonder, was this deliberate? Did Tolkien, in his wisdom, understand that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved? But the tale does not end there. For while scholars debated in their towers of learning, the old forest kept its secrets. And in that green realm, where time moves differently, where the trees remember songs from before the rising of the sun, Tom Bombadil spoke words that echo still across the halls of eternity. Eldest and fatherless, so Goldberry named him. The river, woman's daughter, whose words carried the weight of water over stone, whose voice held the music of streams that have flowed since the world's foundation. And Tom himself, with the casual certainty of one who has never needed to prove his truth, declared, "Tom was here before the river and the trees." Tom remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn, before the river and the trees. Consider that. The rivers of Middle Earth were carved by the Valar in the shaping of Arda. The trees grew from seeds scattered by Yavanna, Commentary in the spring of the world. Yet Tom claims a memory older still, older than the work of the Valar themselves. What manner of being could make such a claim? In all the vast halls of Tolkien's legendarium, we find precious few who predate the coming of the Aina to Arda. The flame imperishable burns at the heart of creation. Ilvatar the One sits beyond the circles of the world. And between them, what? What force or spirit could have witnessed the first notes of that great music? Could have been present when the vision of Arda bloomed in the void? Some have suggested that Tom is himself one of the Aina, perhaps a Maya who entered the world in the earliest days and chose to bind himself so completely to the earth that he became inseparable from it. But this explanation, elegant though it seems, stumbles on a crucial point: Tom's absolute indifference to the concerns that drive all other Aina. Man seeks to understand Ilvatar's will. Olmo works to heal the hurts of the world. Even Melka, in his rebellion, was driven by a desire to create, to possess, to reshape reality according to his vision. Tom alone seems free from such compulsions. He guards his realm not from ambition but from love. He aids travelers not to serve some greater purpose, but because aid is needed. He sings not to accomplish anything, but because song exists to be sung. He is the master. Goldberry tells the hobbits. And in those simple words lies a truth that defies comprehension. Master of what? Of the old forest, certainly. Where even the ancient trees acknowledge his authority. But perhaps master of something more fundamental? Master of that state of being which existed before the concept of mastery was born. Picture him in those days before days, when Arda lay flat beneath unnamed stars. No sun yet burned in the sky. No moon sailed through night's dark waters. The lamps of the Valar had not yet been kindled, and the world lay wrapped in twilight deeper than any darkness we have known. Yet even then, perhaps, there was laughter echoing from some hidden grove. Even then, a voice raised in pure, purposeless joy. I am oldest, Tom declares, and the words ring with the certainty of stone. I am eldest. I am fatherless. If he was there before the Valar came, then who sang his first song? The question hangs in the air like incense, heavy with implication. The wind moves through ancient grass, and we are left to wonder what came before the beginning. Yet, in the shadows, another truth emerges. For if Tom Bombadil represents something older than power itself, then his relationship to the ring reveals a cosmic joke of staggering proportions. Here stands Sauron the Mighty, pouring his malice and his will into a band of gold, seeking to bind all the free peoples of Middle Earth to his dominion. Dark armies march at his command. The very stones of Barad-dûr pulse with his malevolent purpose. Kings and wizards tremble at the mention of his name. And then, Tom Bombadil picks up the ring and uses it as a party trick. The scene unfolds like something from a dream. Frodo, driven by that terrible curiosity that plagues all who bear the ring, slips it upon his finger and vanishes from sight. The other hobbits gasp in alarm, but Tom merely chuckles, reaches out with unerring accuracy, and plucks the ring from Frodo's invisible hand, as easily as one might pluck an apple from a tree. "Show me your hand!" he commands, and Frodo's hand appears, ring and all. "Where are you going with my ring?" "Give it to me." And when Frodo obeys, mesmerized by the casual authority in that voice, Tom holds the golden circle to the firelight, peers through it, and laughs again. The sound fills the room like sunlight, warm and golden and utterly, impossibly free. Then comes the moment that should have shaken the foundations of creation. Tom Bombadil, master of the old forest, eldest and fatherless, slips the one ring onto his own finger. Nothing happens. No terrible transformation. no surge of dark power, no glimpse of the fiery depths of Mount Doom. Tom remains exactly as he was: yellow boots, blue jacket, twinkling eyes, and that irrepressible grin. The ring, which has never failed to exert its influence, which has bent the will of kings and corrupted the hearts of heroes, sits upon his finger like nothing at all. Tolkien himself, in one of his letters, provided insight into this impossible moment. The power of the ring over all concerned with it, even the wizards or emissaries, is not a delusion, but it is not the whole picture, even of the then state of the West. Tom Bombadil is, I suppose, a part of that picture. He is an exemplar of the pure natural science, the spirit that desires knowledge of other things, their history and nature, because they are other and wholly independent of the inquiring mind. Pure natural science, the spirit that desires knowledge of other things because they are other. Here, perhaps, lies the key to understanding Tom's immunity. For the ring's power lies in domination, in the imposition of will upon the world. But how can you dominate someone who has no desire to dominate? How can you corrupt someone who takes delight in things for their own sake, with no reference to himself? The ring seeks to rule. Tom rules nothing, claims nothing, wants nothing beyond the simple joy of existence. He is not indifferent to the ring's power. He is incomprehensible to it, like a key that cannot fit its lock. The ring finds no purchase on a spirit that has transcended the very concept of possession. Could he not take the ring and keep it safe? The counsel of Elrond wonders, and Gandalf, wise beyond the measure of most beings, provides the answer that cuts to the heart of Tom's nature. He would not understand the need, and if he were given the ring, he would soon forget it, or most likely throw it away. Forget it. Throw it away? The Master Ring, the foundation of Sauron's power, the doom of nations. Treat it as a child might treat a pretty bauble that has lost its novelty. Here is the ultimate defeat of evil, not opposition, but irrelevance. Tom Bombadil is the spirit of pure natural joy, untainted by possession. He is what the world might have been if Melkor had never sung his discord into the music of the Aina. He is the laughter that predates sorrow, the song that exists before silence was born. He could have taken the ring, but he would have forgotten it by morning. The sound of his laughter fades into the distance, and we are left with a truth both beautiful and terrible. The greatest power of all is the power to need no power at all. But as the Third Age waned and the shadows lengthened, as the last great war against darkness played out across the fields of Pelennor and the Black Gate of Mordor, a more troubling question emerged from the green depths of the old forest. If Tom Bombadil was indeed present at the world's making, if he had sung his songs through all the long ages of Middle-earth's history, then why do we encounter him only now, in this late hour of the elder days? The answer, when it comes, carries the weight of autumn leaves falling, of summer's end, of all the beautiful things that time devours. He did not vanish. The world moved away from him. Consider the shape of history as Tolkien conceived it. In the beginning, Arda unmarred bloomed in eternal spring beneath the light of the two trees. The Valar walked openly among the children of Iluvatar. Magic was not magic, but simply the natural order of creation, as fundamental as starlight, as essential as song. It was a world where wonder was commonplace, where every tree might speak, where the very stones held memory and will. But the music of the Aina contained discord as well as harmony. Melkor's rebellion introduced the concept of the fall into Arda's design. The trees of Valinor were darkened. The Silmarils were stolen. The elves awakened to a world already touched by shadow. And men arose under a sun that was itself a sign of diminishment. For the sun was made from the last fruit of Laurelin, a pale reminder of the light that was lost. Each age that followed saw the fading of that primal wonder. The elves began their long retreat toward the Grey Havens. Magic became rare, then rarer still. The Third Age dawned in shadow, and by its ending, the last of the elf lords were departing Middle Earth forever, taking their light and their lore to the undying lands beyond the sea. But what of Tom Bombadil, who predated all of this? What of the spirit who remembered the first acorn, who was present when the foundations of the world were laid? The old forest provides our answer. Here, in this tangle of ancient trees and forgotten paths, we find a fragment of the world as it was meant to be. The trees here are not merely trees, they are persons, with memory and will and purpose. They remember the great forests that once covered all of Eriador. They dream of the days when Ent wives walked among their roots, when the world was green and growing and glad. But each year, the old forest grows smaller. Each decade, another acre falls to the axes of men. The roads multiply, the cities expand, and the wild places retreat ever deeper into legend. Tom's domain, once boundless as the world itself, contracts to a handful of square miles between the Brandywine and the Barrow Downs. This is not defeat. Tom shows no sign of diminishment or despair. Rather, it is the natural consequence of Arda's aging. As the world grows more solid, more predictable, more bound by the laws that govern mortal realms, there is less and less room for the impossible. The age of magic gives way to the age of reason. The time of elves yields to the dominion of men. And Tom becomes a memory within a memory. A fragment of the elder days, preserved like a flower pressed between the pages of an ancient book. He is the silence that the storm forgot, the laughter that echoes still in places where time moves differently, where the old songs linger in the wind. The old forest grows smaller each year. The Withywindle runs quieter. The hobbits of the Shire speak less often of the strange paths that wind eastward from Buckland, where the trees grow too thick and the shadows too deep for comfortable folk to venture. Tom Bombadil fades not because he weakens, but because the world has less room for wonder. He is the last light before shadow, not the darkness of Mordor, which is but a passing evil, but the gentle shadow of forgetting that falls across all mythic realms when the age of story gives way to the age of history. The sound of rain ceases. Only birdsong remains, thin and sweet and infinitely sad, and we are left to wonder. As Middle Earth transforms into our own mundane world, what becomes of the voices that sang before the dawn? Yet the mystery deepens when we turn from Tolkien's texts to the theories that have bloomed in its wake, like flowers in the garden of scholarly discourse. For Tom Bombadil has become something of a Rorschach test for readers of fantasy, each seeing in him a reflection of their own deepest longings and profoundest questions. The most audacious theory places Tom Bombadil at the very apex of creation itself. If he is truly eldest and fatherless, these scholars argue, then perhaps he is no mere spirit of the earth or remnant of the elder days. Perhaps he is Iluvatar himself, the one, the creator, walking among his creation in the humblest of forms. The evidence, they claim, is compelling. Who else could be utterly immune to the ring's power? Who else could predate the valor, could remember the first raindrop and the first acorn? Who else could display such perfect joy, such complete freedom from the concerns that drive all other beings? Tom's casual omnipotence, his mastery over his domain, his ability to see through the ring's invisibility, his power to command even ancient trees, suggests someone for whom the very laws of nature are merely suggestions. And there is something in Tom's laughter, something in his endless delight in the small wonders of existence, that speaks of a creator's joy in his handiwork. Like a master craftsman returning incognito to admire his work, Iluvatar walks the paths of ardor and finds them good. But this interpretation, beautiful though it may be, faces a crucial objection. If Tom is indeed the one, then his indifference to the fate of Middle Earth becomes troubling rather than charming. What manner of creator stands aside while his children suffer? What god plays games with golden rings while evil marshals its armies in the east? Perhaps, then, Tom represents something else entirely. Not the creator, but the act of creation itself. He is the music of the Aina made manifest, the harmony that underlies all discord, the song that continues to play even when individual instruments fall silent. This would explain his agelessness, his joy, his perfect freedom from the need to possess or control. He is not a being but a principle, the principle of pure creativity, expressing itself through the simplest and most joyful of forms. Or consider this: perhaps Tom Bombadil is Tolkien himself, the author walking through his own sub-creation. The evidence here is tantalizing. Tolkien began writing about Tom long before The Lord of the Rings took shape, basing the character on a Dutch doll owned by his children. Tom's love of simple rhymes, his delight in the names and natures of growing things, his vast knowledge combined with his humble appearance. All of this mirrors the professor who spent his days studying ancient languages and his evenings inventing fairy stories for his family. In his letters, Tolkien admits as much. I think it is true that I speak for all growing things, and would be naturally taken as such by creatures that all live under the dominion of Sauron. Tom as the voice of the author, the sub-creator who takes delight in his creation for its own sake, who has invested so much love in every tree and stone and stream that they have become real to him in ways that transcend mere fiction. But perhaps the most profound theory sees Tom as the answer to Tolkien's deepest theological questions. In a world marked by the fall, where every choice carries the potential for corruption, where even the wisest and most powerful can be brought low by the lure of domination, Tom represents the possibility of unfallen existence. He is what the children of Iluvatar might have been if they had never tasted the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, never learned to distinguish between self and other, never conceived the desire to possess and control. He is Adam in Eden, naming the animals for the sheer joy of naming. He is the laugh of a child who has not yet learned that the world contains sorrow. He is the song that was sung before the singer thought to ask why he was singing. Each theory carries its own truth, its own beauty, its own compelling logic. And perhaps that is precisely the point. For Tom Bombadil resists easy categorization, just as wonder resists analysis, just as joy defies explanation. If he is ill Vatar's laughter, then the world itself once laughed with him. A single note lingers in the air, the echo of creation's first chord. And we are left with questions that may be more precious than any answers we could devise. But the tale grows richer still when we turn our attention to she who shares Tom's hearth and heart. Goldberry, the river woman's daughter, whose presence transforms the master of the old forest from a figure of cosmic mystery into something atchingly, beautifully human. She appears to the hobbits like something from a dream of summer, tall and slender, clad in living silver that shifts and flows like water over stone. Her hair falls golden as wheat, her eyes shine clear as mountain springs, and her voice, her voice carries the music of all the streams that flow from the misty mountains to the sea. When she speaks, it is the sound of water over pebbles, of rain upon leaves, of the endless conversation between earth and sky. "Fair lady," cries Frodo, and falls to his knees before her beauty. But Goldberry only laughs, a sound like water tinkling over bright stones. "Come, dear folk," she calls. "Tom told me you were coming. He has business here, looking after all his animals in the forest. But the door is open, and the supper is warm." Here is the domesticity that grounds Tom's cosmic significance. Where he is boundless, she is the cycle of life contained within manageable forms. Where he represents the eternal principle of joy, she embodies the seasonal round of growth and rest, of flowing and stillness, of the endless dance between constancy and change. Tolkien gives us precious little of her history. She is the river, woman's daughter, no more and no less. But in that simple phrase lies a world of implication. For the rivers of Middle Earth are older than the roads, older than the kingdoms of men, older perhaps than memory itself. They carry in their waters the tears of the elves, the hopes of mortals, the very lifeblood of Arda. And if Goldberry is their daughter, then she partakes of that ancient wisdom, that patient persistence, that ability to find a way around any obstacle through patience and time. Watch how she moves through Tom's house, how she tends the lamps and arranges the flowers, how she prepares food that seems to capture the essence of summer in every bite. This is not the magic of power, but the magic of care, the deep enchantment that transforms a house into a home, strangers into welcomed guests, a meal into a feast of fellowship. Together, Tom and Goldberry represent a harmony that the rest of Middle-earth has lost. He is the eternal spring of joy that never runs dry. She is the wisdom that channels that joy into forms that can be shared, sustained, celebrated. He sings the song of pure being. She provides the rhythm that makes the song into music. Their love story, for it is that, though Tolkien tells it in whispers, rather than declarations, spans ages beyond the count of mortal years. Yet it carries the fresh sweetness of courtship's first morning. Tom speaks of Goldberry with the wonder of a man perpetually amazed by his good fortune. She speaks of him with the fond affection of one who has learned to love, not just the grand gestures, but the small, daily kindnesses that make a life together possible. Tom's country ends here. He will not pass the borders, she tells the hobbits as they prepare to leave. Tom has his house to mind, and Goldberry is waiting. In those words, lies a choice that echoes across the ages. The choice to tend the garden rather than conquer the world. To cherish what is near rather than grasp for what is distant. To find infinity in the space between two loving hearts. For what would Tom be without Goldberry? Still joyful, certainly. Still free, still immune to the ring's corruption. Still master of his small realm. But he would be joy without direction, freedom without purpose, mastery without meaning. She is the shore that gives shape to his ocean, the banks that guide his river, the home that makes his journeying sweet. And what would happen to either of them if the other were lost? The question hangs in the air like morning mist, beautiful and terrible and utterly unanswerable. For they have grown together like two trees whose roots have intertwined so completely that neither could survive without the other. Without Goldberry's voice, even Tom's song would fade. The thought sends ripples of golden light across dark water, and we are left to contemplate the mystery of perfect love in an imperfect world. How it endures, how it transforms, how it makes even the immortal vulnerable to the one loss that could unmake them utterly. But as the War of the Ring reaches its climax, as armies clash at Minas Tirith and heroes stand at last before the Black Gate of Mordor, a troubling question emerges from the green depths of the old forest. What manner of being remains utterly untouched by such monumental events? What sort of master tends his garden while the world burns? The criticism is as old as Tolkien's work itself. Tom Bombadil is selfish, irresponsible, a figure of cosmic power who refuses to use it when it matters most. While Aragorn takes up his sword and Gandalf spends his strength, and even the smallest of hobbits march toward certain doom, Tom Bombadil sings in his forest, picks water, lilies for his beloved, chats with trees about the weather. The charge stings precisely because it contains a grain of apparent truth. Tom could have aided the Fellowship. His power over his domain suggests abilities that might have turned the tide of battle. At the very least, he could have provided counsel, given warning, offered the wisdom that comes with having witnessed the rise and fall of ages. Instead, he gives them a night's shelter, some cryptic advice about staying on the path, and sends them on their way with a song on his lips and barely a backward glance. But this interpretation, seductive though it may be, fundamentally misunderstands the nature of Tom's existence. For he represents something that our power-obsessed age finds almost incomprehensible. The possibility of meaningful existence beyond the realm of political action, of spiritual significance that has nothing to do with influence or control. Consider what Tolkien himself wrote about Bombadil's role in the larger narrative. The story is cast in terms of a good side and a bad side, beauty against ruthless ugliness, tyranny against kingship, moderated freedom with consent against compulsion that has long lost any object save mere power. But if you have, as it were, taken a vow of poverty, renounced control, and take your delight in things for themselves without reference to yourself, watching, observing, and to some extent knowing, then the question of the rights and wrongs of power and control might become utterly meaningless to you. A vow of poverty, renounced control, delight in things for themselves. Tom's apparent indifference to the War of the Ring is not callousness, but enlightenment. He has transcended the very categories that make such conflicts possible. He is not good in opposition to Sauron's evil. He exists in a realm beyond good and evil as we understand them, in the space where being precedes moral choice, where existence itself is the only value that matters. This does not make him immoral. Rather, it makes him the embodiment of a morality so profound that it appears to our limited perspective as a morality. Tom's goodness is not the goodness of the warrior who fights against darkness, but the goodness of the light that simply shines, regardless of whether anyone is there to see it. He tends his garden not out of selfishness, but out of a wisdom deeper than strategy. For what is a garden but a space set apart from the world's chaos? A place where the fundamental processes of growth and renewal can unfold according to their own ancient rhythms. What is a gardener but one who understands that some things cannot be forced, that patience and care accomplish more than power and haste? In a world at war, Tom Bombadil tends the peace that will remain when the war is over. In an age of discord, he preserves the harmony that will be needed when the music begins again. He is not indifferent to suffering. He is focused on that which transcends suffering, the joy that no sorrow can wholly extinguish, the song that continues even when individual voices fall silent. And perhaps most importantly, Tom represents proof that goodness can exist without purpose, that joy needs no justification, that some things are worth preserving simply because they are beautiful. In a narrative driven by quest and conflict, by the eternal struggle between light and darkness, he stands as a reminder that there are values beyond victory, truths beyond triumph. The ring might have conquered Middle-earth. Sauron might have achieved his dark dominion. But as long as Tom Bombadil sang in his forest, as long as he delighted in the growing things and loved his river daughter and welcomed strangers to his table, something unconquerable would have remained in the world. Not to fight the darkness, but to be the light that makes fighting worthwhile. In the end, all thrones will crumble, but songs never die. The sound of rain returns, softly rhythmic, and we are left to ponder the radical possibility that the most profound response to evil is not opposition, but indifference. The indifference of joy so complete, it cannot comprehend its own negation. Yet as the Third Age draws to its close, as Frodo sails from the Grey Havens and the last elf ship disappears into the uttermost west, a shadow falls across even the brightest corner of Middle-earth. For the victory over Sauron, complete though it may be, cannot halt the deeper transformation that has been working in the world since the first elves awakened beneath the stars. The age of magic is ending. The time of men has begun. From the Shire to Gondor, from the halls of Minas, Tirith to the humblest village, the changes are subtle but irreversible. The old roads grow straighter, more practical, less likely to win through groves where strange beings might dwell. The forests are measured, mapped, divided into manageable parcels. Rivers are bridged, dammed, channeled to serve the purposes of commerce and industry. It is not malice that drives this transformation, but necessity. Men are mortal, brief as mayflies compared to the elves, and in their brevity lies an urgency that brooks no delay. They have no time for meandering paths or conversations with trees. They build roads that go directly to their destinations, houses that stand firm against the weather, tools that accomplish their tasks efficiently and without fuss. And in this new world that is being born, rational, predictable, governed by laws that hold constant from one end of the earth to the other. What place is there for a being who predates causation, who exists beyond explanation, who treats the fundamental forces of reality as materials for children's games? The old forest feels the change first. Each year brings fewer visitors. The paths grow fainter, choked with brambles that no longer part automatically for approaching footsteps. The trees grow quieter, their ancient conversations dwindling to whispers, then to silence. Even Old Man Willow seems less actively malevolent and more simply tired. Tom notices, of course. How could he not? But his response is not the desperate resistance we might expect from a lord whose kingdom is shrinking. Instead, he tends what remains with the same patient care he has always shown. He sings to the trees that still listen. He gathers flowers for Goldberry from meadows that grow smaller each season. He welcomes the occasional lost traveler with the same generous hospitality, as if his house was still the center of a realm, rather than an island in a sea of advancing civilization. Tom's country ends here. Goldberry tells the hobbits, and in those words we hear an acknowledgement of boundaries that once did not exist. Tom's domain, which perhaps once encompassed all the wild places of the world, has contracted to a handful of square miles. And still it contracts, year by year, acre by acre, until what? What happens when the last wild grove is felled? When the final untamed stream is bridged and channeled? When the old forest becomes merely a patch of woodland, preserved for the curiosity of historians and the recreation of city dwellers who have forgotten what it means to walk in fear and wonder? Does Tom fade with his realm? Does he simply step backward into whatever place spirits go when the world no longer has room for them? Or does something else occur? Something stranger and more profound. Perhaps he steps deeper into the heart of things. Perhaps as the outer world grows more solid and predictable, Tom retreats into the spaces between, the gaps in reality where wonder still dwells. He might walk now in the pause between one breath and the next, in the moment between sleeping and waking, in that eternal instant when a seed decides to grow. Perhaps he has become the presence you feel when you walk alone in any patch of growing green. Not the old forest specifically, but any place where life persists in its ancient forms. The gardener who finds his roses blooming more vibrantly than they should. The child who hears laughter in an empty playground. The poet who discovers words arranging themselves into patterns too perfect to be merely coincidental. Or perhaps, and here the mystery deepens to its ultimate profundity, Tom has transcended even the need for place. Perhaps he has become pure song, pure joy, pure being unencumbered by the necessity of having somewhere to be. Like music that continues to exist, even when no instrument is playing it. Like love that persists, even when its object is absent. Tom might now exist in that realm where all true things dwell, when they are not currently manifesting in the world of matter and time. The rain falls more softly now, each drop a note in a vast, quiet symphony. The shadows lengthen, but they are gentle shadows, the kind that invite rest rather than flight. And somewhere in the growing dusk, we hear it, or imagine we hear it, the faintest echo of familiar laughter, warm and welcoming and utterly, inexplicably free. When the last leaf falls from the old forest, will his song end, or begin again? The question hangs in the evening air like the scent of distant flowers, and we are left to wonder whether endings and beginnings are truly different things, or simply different names for the same eternal dance. And so we come at last to the heart of the mystery, to the place where all questions converge and all answers dissolve into something deeper than knowledge. For what is Tom Bombadil but the question itself? Not who he is, but what it means to be in a world that demands reasons for everything, purposes for every action, explanations for every joy. Picture him now as he was in the beginning. Not a character in a story, but the story itself, the narrative that writes itself, the song that sings the singer. He stands at the threshold between the known and the unknowable, between the realm of scholarship and the country of pure wonder, and he laughs, not at us, never at us, but with the cosmic delight of one who has discovered that existence itself is the greatest joke ever told, and the punchline is simply being alive to hear it. In the grey hours before dawn, when the world balances on the edge between night and day, when shadows hold their breath and the first birds test their voices against the coming light, there is a moment of perfect stillness. It lasts perhaps a heartbeat, perhaps an eternity. In that moment, all the busy purposes of the world pause. All the urgent necessities wait. All the explanations fall silent. And in that silence, we hear it the oldest song in the world. It is not a song of words, though it gave birth to all words. It is not a song of melody, though it contains all melodies. It is the song that was sung before there was anyone to hear it. The song that will continue when the last listener has gone home. The song that makes singing possible and gives silence its meaning. Tom Bombadil is that song made visible, given form, offered as a gift to a world that has almost forgotten how to receive gifts without asking what they cost, what they're for, what obligations they impose. He is the spirit of gratuitous goodness, of joy that serves no purpose beyond its own existence, of love that loves because loving is what love does. He is not important to the narrative. Tolkien wrote, and in saying so revealed the deepest truth of all. For the most important things never are important to the narrative. They exist before stories begin and after stories end. They are the light by which stories are written, the silence from which words emerge, the mystery that makes meaning possible. We live in an age that demands answers. Tom Bombadil offers us questions more beautiful than any answer could be. We live in a time that worships power. He shows us the power that needs no power. We exist in a world that measures value by utility. He demonstrates the value of things that are valuable simply because they are. He was there before the first note was sung. He will be there when the last one fades. He is the eternal audience for the music of the Aina, the one who listens not to understand or to judge or to learn, but simply because listening is what listeners do. He is the laughter that greeted the first joke, the wonder that witnessed the first wonder, the joy that needs no object, because it is itself the source of all objects worth having joy about. And perhaps, he is still there, singing under the green hills of whatever country exists beyond the borders of explanation. Perhaps if we learn to listen as he listens, to look as he looks, to love as he loves, without purpose, without reservation, without the endless internal commentary that turns every experience into data, and every mystery into a problem to be solved. We might catch an echo of that first song, that oldest laughter, that deepest truth, the truth that being is better than non-being, that existence is funnier than non-existence, that the fact that anything is at all is so improbable, so unnecessary, so utterly unreasonable, that the only sane response is to throw back our heads and laugh until the stars themselves join in the joke. Perhaps he is still there, singing under the green hills, and if you listen, truly listen, you might hear the oldest song in the world, the melody that has no beginning and no end, that starts fresh every morning and never grows old, that contains within its simple rhythm all the music that has ever been made and all the music that ever could be. Dear listener, this story ends, but many await. Subscribe so no tale escapes you.